Hey everybody, welcome to Author Talk. I'm Sarah Donovan, and we are talking to authors who contributed generously to the Just YA anthology, which is here in paperback, that you can get anywhere books are sold, but is available as an open education resource for teachers and students for free, where you can download as many copies as you want, as often as you want, and use it in your classrooms and share it. And so we're talking to authors about how they decided to contribute to the anthology, a little bit about behind the kind of the story behind the piece, and then whatever else comes up. We're just happy to be here. So today we have Kristin Bartley Lenz, and she's gonna, tell us about her piece on spontaneous combustion today. So welcome. Tell us where you are in the world, Kristin.
Hello, hello. I am coming to you from Metro Detroit. Royal Oak is a small suburb just north of Detroit in Michigan.
And what do you do there?
I am a writer and a social worker. So I have my master's degree in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm in transition right now. So I've actually lived in Michigan, Georgia, and California. And in each of those places, I've worked in social work somewhere differently, a different aspect of the field, which is one of the great things about social work, which you were a social worker at one time too. So I love that connection that we have. So yeah, I've worked in outpatient mental health clinics. I've worked in schools. I worked in a hospital. I've done, home visiting programs with babies and young children, a little bit of everything. And I most recently was working as a therapist with teenagers and young adults mostly. But I left that position just this year. And so I'm sort of in transition right now, trying to combine my writing and social work careers together. So, and just recognizing the therapeutic benefits of writing and how anybody can do that and access it. And so I've been teaching social workers how to access writing for their own self-care and to use it with their clients and in the various settings that they work in. And yeah, and writing and trying to get my own work published, which sometimes seems like a whole job in and of itself.
It sure is. It sure is. Well, were you a writer always, or did the writing come from your time becoming a social worker, or what is the story behind your writing life?
Yeah, I was a huge reader as a kid, total bookworm. I wasn't that healthy as a kid, so I was just sick a lot. Spent a lot of time reading. That was my comfort, and I just always thought I would grow up to be a writer. That's what I wanted to do. Judy Blume was my hero. She still is. And but then at some point I sort of chickened out. I lost confidence in my writing. I didn't know what to write about. My college writing class, I didn't have any creative writing classes in high school I could access. In college, it was kind of harsh. I really had a hard time with feedback from my peers. And at the same time, I was really interested in psychology and social work. And it seemed like the path I needed to take instead, to support myself, just to have something steady to rely on. But then I think what I realized was that I needed social work and those experiences to really just open and expand my world. I think my writing had shut down for a little bit, due to confidence and also because my world was too small, and I needed to experience more. So finally, I was able to do that through social work and moving around the country and having a variety of experiences and meeting more people. And yeah, and then that writing just sort of naturally came back. So it started with sort of bibliotherapy and sharing stories with the children and teens that I was working with, and then it grew from there. So that I finally started dabbling, and then went back and took some more classes to improve my skills too.
Oh, Kristen, thank you so much for sharing that story. And I think um, it's great to think about the trajectory of our writing life or as our careers as well. And I think, high school students are thinking about what they want to be and who they are now and what they want to kind of grow into as well. And there isn't really this clear trajectory all the time, right? We kind of circle back to things and we also don't have to close doors. It sounds like you really kept that door open
Yeah, very much.
It kind of was waiting for you when the time was right, and it kind of stays open. You can circle back to that back and forth, and it's not something that's all or nothing. And I think sometimes that's the way we think about writer. Like, I'm a writer, that's all that I do, or I'm a writer, it's part of who I am. I'm a writer now, and more so now, and less later. It just changes, and I think it's okay to do that.
It is, it is. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, I think, to know exactly what we want to do and to do that one thing that we love and make it our career and our world. And really we are, we contain multitudes, right? There are so many different aspects of our lives that we can pull in. And you never know what, by saying yes, by being curious and saying yes to opportunities, I've been just really surprised at the relationships that have come out of that and, the opportunities that have grown from there.
Yeah, well, I think our paths have crossed because of some of those yeses and those opportunities, and I'm really grateful for that. And so, yeah, so you coming into this project and contributing to Just YA was really wonderful. And then, would you like to read your contribution, or do you want to talk about it first?
Why don't I read it first?
Okay,
Okay, you ready?
ready.
Okay, so this is flash fiction, so a short story. It'll take probably about 5 minutes. It's called Spontaneous Combustion. They call it a stitch, but it feels like my rib cage is splintering. Still, I run and run, chased by cleats, scraping my Achilles. I've already signaled for a sub. My teammates amplify my plea, but coach is a bellowing bull. I'm counting on you. I count 10 girls on the bench who never get to play. My lungs scorch. I gasp and gag. Bitter bile rises. My white uniform a canvas for the eruption of my sour heart. High school soccer practice is from 4 to 6 p.m., but coach never stops before 6:25. Our parents' SUVs purr in the parking lot, beasts spewing sulfur. We race to gather the cones, herd the balls, drag the nets. We slap sweaty hands, chug plastic polluted water, unwind tape from stressed ankles. We waddle off the field, weighted with 2 backpacks and 2 hours of homework. Back at my house, I eat, shower, and bury my nose deep in my dog's neck. My books and binders are a tower destined to topple. Our coach's parting words every evening. Remember, ladies, prioritize sleep. Take care of your bodies. At school, my counselor asked me to rate my stress level 1 to 10. How do you rank an ocean's waves ebbing and flowing, receding and rising, tugged by the power of the moon? Volunteer hours? She's reading from a checklist. What are you passionate about? I don't tell her that I wrote a poem about the magnolia tree outside my bedroom window and the petals that feel as smooth as the inside of a seashell. I don't tell her that I paint my 13-year-old brother's fingernails a different color of the rainbow at his request and how he chips them all bare before morning. I don't tell her how I sniff peppermint oil before exams, sip ginger tea before games, dab lavender behind my ears to help me sink into sleep past midnight. I think about telling her about my job washing dogs at the pet parlor down the street, how I murmur soothing words as my hands lather shampoo, the smell of wet fur in my nostrils. I part my lips to speak, but her eyes skitter to her chiming phone. Find your passion. It'll give you purpose, she says, her finger swiping the screen. My mom says I talked in my sleep again, but my words were garbled. I remember my dream, the rapid river that flooded my lungs and drowned my voice. I choked on a fish. At church on Sunday morning, I exchange a sleepy sideways glance with my brother. Our phones are in the car, an itch we cannot reach. Afterwards, I have 78 messages from my AP chemistry group chat, an afternoon shift at the pet parlor, and an evening of babysitting. But mom insists we go out for brunch because I hardly see you. At the restaurant, my English teacher balances a platter of pancakes 2 tables over. Her hair is pulled back into two low ponytails. She looks 12, my mom says. I'm 30 years old, but I can't buy a house, my teacher once told us. Her student loans loom as large as a mortgage. Liberal arts, my dad snorts. I think about how to keep my pet parlor job this summer. The weeks are already scheduled with SAT tutoring, soccer camps, and college visits. Mom expects me to earn a scholarship. My brother tosses his bangs out of his eyes and drums his hands on the table. He's kept the nail polish on each of his middle fingers. One is blue, one is pink. You need a haircut, our stepdad tells him. Cold air blasts from the vent above our table. I rub my arms and shiver. My mom pulls at the neckline of her blouse and fans herself with her napkin. My stepdad spreads and snaps his fingers at our waitress, orders more coffee. I close my eyes and scratch fuel plus O2 creates CO2 plus H2O across the inside of my eyelids. If our teenage brains are so undeveloped, why are we able to see the bigger picture while the adults only see what they want in the moment? My brother kicks me under the table and tips his head toward the door. I push my chair back and rise. We'll wait outside, I tell our parents. My brother and I bump shoulders on our way out. He holds the door open, and I squint into the sunlight. The warm air feels like a hug.
Thank you, Kristin. As you revisit this piece today, what stands out to you?
This piece was begun as a poem. I wrote it as I do a lot of my writing, especially poetry. It comes out of something that happened in real life. And at this time, years ago when I first wrote it, my daughter was in high school and I was really mad at her soccer coach. And I couldn't do anything about it. It was one of those situations where the girls had to handle it on their own. But I needed to sort of vent in my own way. And so I wrote like I do. And then usually what happens, sometimes those things just get put away. It's a journal entry, it's a poem, it's not going anywhere, but sometimes something in it catches my attention and it speaks to our greater world and things that are happening outside of me, outside of my family. And then I start revising. And then the poem grows into something that I didn't even think of to begin with. And so that's how this one started. And then it grew into, and then it needed further exploration. So it grew into a short story. And I revised it several times based on different assignments. So based on a contest I had entered, based on, your collection that you put together here, there's certain word count limits and things like that. So things I had to take out or change or reconsider. But as I just read this today, especially, I didn't really put it together before, but I'm recognizing the poetic elements in it. Like there's so much alliteration. I'm realizing, all of, slap sweaty, plastic polluted, waddle weighted, all this alliterative stuff that just it really flows and packs a punch, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Well, now, it makes perfect sense that it was originally a poem and then you sort of moved it into fiction, especially the way that it looks on the page, which people can see when I'll put the link in the comment section so you can see how it has, it's paragraph, but it also kind of feels like stanzas and it has these sort of dividing asterisks in there, but everything is justified to the left. And not, not with this indenting that a teacher might say, oh, you have to indent the dialogue or you have to, indent every paragraph or something, but it has qualities of the poem and the way that it looks on the page. And then listening to you read, yes, you can hear the like sonoric effect, the sound of the words and the phrasing. And it makes sense that there is that rhythm because the speaker is an athlete and the speaker is moving through and across all these different spaces so fluidly like an athlete would or in here too. So I see so much of that. And the beauty of like sort of the essential oils at the bottom like kind of speaks to it makes me wonder, like, where did the lavender come from and the peppermint come from? And, the relationship maybe with the mother or with a friend. It offers questions for me that make me think, oh yeah, this could easily be turned into, a longer story or a chapter book or something like that, but also stands alone as it is.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what I love about short fiction. You can sort of you can take it in quickly, in a gulp in our fast-paced world, but yet it can stay with you, and you can return to it, and you can see something different each time. You can interpret things differently. You can read more. You can, find ways that it resonates for you. And yeah, so yeah, and you can. One of the things when people do read some of my short fiction, they'll say, I want to know what happens next, and I'm like, well, that's for you. Right
Yeah.
there, yeah, I am handing it to you now, and you can take it from there, and you're right, like you said, there's questions that it brings up, and that just leads to, can lead to great conversations, and
Yeah.
people really sharing their own experience.
Yeah, it feels like the flash fiction is just it's a form of inferring, like a form of trusting the reader to fill in what they need to and write the next, write what's in the spaces and write what's in the margin and imagine what's next. Because, I think the author has to trust the reader to do a lot of the work, some of the work with the seeds that are kind of, embedded in the piece, and which is why I love this for high school students, well, for middle and high school students especially, um, because they can kind of, you know, tackle it, read it, and enjoy it in one class and return to it another time. And it's not a ton of labor, um, to work through a whole novel or something like that. But there's a lot that can happen with, a couple pages for sure.
Yeah, I think it opens a door, for you to then explore further your own experience, or how maybe it reminds you of someone else's experience, and I think leads to prompts too, whether it's a teacher assigning it or just, anyone who wants to explore an issue in their own writing. You can pick up where I left off at any place. If you do have questions in one area, or you can, just use it as a jumping off point for, your own experience that might be similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about the prompt as well. It's like, what a lovely invitation for some, flash fiction or flash nonfiction instead of having, this whole personal narrative thing that we keep doing over and over. And then I have found that, students write the same story every year because they have a different teacher and I always have to write the personal narrative. Um, but this using the mentor text, like your story here, is a great opportunity to say, where, like, what club are you in, or what activity do you do, or what sport are you in, or, what's your role at church? Like any of these kind of questions, and take us right into it, like how you feel while you're doing the thing, which is here, um, in the middle of a game, but like take us right into doing the thing, whether it's a performance or whether washing dishes at the job or something like that, and then move us out, to a little bit of backstory, and then move us to another scene in your school, and these like flash scenes here, really can build a lovely short narrative piece, and your text is a great mentor text for that, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a lot of exploration to be done. And, as I was reading it again too, people have pointed out to me that there is some of my social work in my writing, and I don't realize it at the time. Like, I'm not setting out to write, I want to write something that's going to help people cope with stress. I'm going to incorporate, these ideas. Like, it just sort of happens, and sometimes I don't even recognize it. That happened with my first novel that I wrote, for sure, that people pointed out lots of things. And as I'm reading this one, you can look at the various ways. So this is a girl who's really, reaching there's all this pressure just building up, building up in her, and how is she coping with it? And you can look and see these different ways, like you pointed out with the, some of the essential oils, trying to, help herself relax. There's, burying her neck in her, or burying her nose deep in her dog's neck, the comfort of animals. There's, her job that she really likes and gets some satisfaction from. There's beauty, right? When she's recognizing the beauty in the magnolia petal, taking that time to notice something in nature, those brief moments of wonder, and then actually writing about it, right? She talks about writing a poem about it. And then just her relationship with her brother, this camaraderie, they're in it together, sort of helping each other. So yeah, so many different areas that readers could then explore more for themselves too.
Yeah. Yes, I think, and you're making me really think about this too, and how, and again, why I love your piece and why we created this is really to think about youth as having agency and also, able to problem solve and able to assuage their own anxieties, and being resourceful and all these different things that this narrator is doing, um, to cope, to heal, to be resilient, to navigate the stress and try to figure out like how to do it. And there's such trust in your writing of the youth to be able to do that. Um, and also as a reader to think, oh, and I'm always looking for a way to take care of myself or to make sure that I can get my needs met when I need them met and not having to be dependent on someone else to fix me or something. And definitely in this story, that there is a counselor, but the counselor really isn't, you know, fixing anything. It's right.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it's really the narrator who's doing the work, who's doing um, the puzzling of things, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, maybe it's probably too much to say, like, there are adults in the story, behaving badly, but really not behaving badly, but more they're preoccupied with their own concerns, and they're not paying attention, and they're not seeing, what this character is going through. So yeah, so she is like feeling on her own, often, and how is she coping with that? And there are fortunately hopeful adults all around, that often intervene and have strong relationships, with young people and really make a difference. But yeah, in this particular story, it's not happening at these moments anyway.
Yeah. Yes, and again, they could like come and go, and we don't know the whole story, but we're having to make, kind of infer those things, right? Yeah, so it's so wonderful, Kristen. Thank you.
Thank
Well, what
you.
are you working on now? What's kind of coming up for you next?
Yeah, so
Well, you
it's
said
been
you're kind of in between the jobs, right? But
yeah. So I'm sort of debating as to how to go about expanding some of these, classes and workshops that I've led for social workers. And then my next novel, I just signed a contract actually a couple months ago for my next novel. Yeah, yay. It took a long time. I wrote it years ago, and it's been revised again and again and again, based on various feedback from editors, and I had a very persistent agent, who really believed in it and kept sending it out, and we finally found an editor who really believed in it too. So, and publishing is so slow, that means it will not be out until early 2026. So, but I do have a lot, to do. There's more editing, all the various stages of editing will come with that. So I'm looking forward to really digging back into that story, and yeah, and then all the various things that will grow out of that too. Revamping my website, and sort of creating some, involvement in the community again too. Some of that, I had just wonderful opportunities with my first novel, and really got to speak at a lot of schools and conferences, and do a lot of interaction with, teens and adults. And that sort of, it was starting to slow down, when COVID hit, and then it really came to a halt. So, there was some virtual things, but then it's been kind of slow to gain momentum, after that. So I'm looking forward to more of those opportunities too.
well, we are too. I can't wait. Excited.
Thanks.
Well, okay, in closing, is there anything you want to say to teachers or the readers as we end our time together?
Yeah, no, I think just keep reading what you love, right? So there's so much now, whether it's virtual and it's, blogs, or it's stories you come across, posts even, right? There's comic books, there's classic novels, there's new novels, there's so much diversity now, in different experiences, just helping you to better understand the world around you. And that's definitely how it started for me before I could actually get out there in the world and meet more people and travel and do those things that also expanded my world. So you've got a great start, just with reading. And if you want to be a writer, I think that's the biggest thing that you can do to help grow your skills too. You sort of gain a blueprint, I guess, of what story is and what narrative is just by reading, and it helps you gain empathy that then is going to become reflected back out in the world.
Love it. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.